Prepare yourself for a sprawling discussion on just about anything, where critical thinking meets pop culture in a collision of mind-bending proportions. Please secure all neurons and prepare for full frontal cortex. It's time for Incoherent Ramblings. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Sorry, I didn't just give you that ball. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Incoherent Ramblings 016. This week we're talking about marriage because we finally got Booger. Yay! We got Boogers. He's been unavailable for the last few weeks because, well, let's do introductions and we'll get to that. First of all, I'm Joey Shamel, your host for today. We also have
Paul Hottinger,
Cale Anderson,
Daryl George,
and coming with us over not Skype but something else is Booger.
Go ahead and
howdy.
Howdy.
It's Woody.
I'm Woody. Howdy. All right, so we're going to be talking about marriage today. And
Marriage.
Marriage.
We did that already.
And we've been wanting to talk about it for a while. And this was Boogers, so we've been holding off on it. And
I greatly appreciate it.
Yes, I know. I know you do. And so here we are to talk about it.
I think you got cold feet.
Well, I think it's interesting the fact that we held off on it because actually some good news, right, Booger? You have been reunited with your family.
Yes. As a matter of fact, that's mostly why I've been unavailable for the past few weeks. My wife decided to pack up the old U-Haul truck and children and dogs and made a trip on back here to North Carolina from Oklahoma. And I had to spend the past beforehand getting the house prepared in the next few weeks trying to combine two households worth of junk. And it's been an interesting adventure to say the least.
Reunited and it feels so good.
So, we're going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about a little bit what we know about marriage. And then we're going to talk about our personal experiences.
What we think we know about
marriage. And what we'd like to do in the future is actually have each of our wives or significant others listen to this, and then they will join us, hopefully, on a future podcast for part 2 of marriage.
Yes, that'll be the divorce episode.
Yes. All right. So, we're going to start off. Sponsor.
Great.
Sponsor. Get the sponsor, dude.
Today's sponsor is
Mr. T! Now, why do we use him for marriage?
Well, why is Mr. T here with marriage? Is it because he's tough? No. It's because in marriage, there is usually an exchange of jewelry. And who knows more than jewelry? Nobody knows more than Mr. T.
That's right.
So shoot that jibber jabber and say I do.
I gave you a promise necklace, woman.
Is he married?
I don't know.
Wait, do we even know his real name? Because it's not T, obviously.
Mr.
His first name is Mr. His middle name is period.
At his graduation, they were like, T, Mr.
I think now that we're going to start, because we don't have a pre-rambling setup for this week, but we will go ahead and do the segment, which I can't find my phone for.
Oh, no.
Which I just freaking had it. What the hell?
Oh, your phone?
Yeah.
Somebody called Joey.
I just freaking called Booger.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, we're going to add Joey Ask Google. But here it is.
Hey, Joey asked Google. All right.
So the first question is going to be mine. And it is going to be, and it's been a little slow today, so let's hope.
By the way, Google I/O was yesterday, and they're improving the stuff so that it's contextual.
Oh, really?
Like it remembers previous questions, so you can start using things like it and there and things like that.
Nice.
So it's like, where's Moscone Center, which is where it was held, and then the next thing could be navigate me to it or navigate me to there. Rather.
Very nice.
And it'll remember the previous.
So here we go.
Fill in the blanks.
What is Mr. T's real name?
Phineas Gage. No, maybe not.
Phineas Gage.
Jamal
Hackafemme.
Tito.
Jamal Tito.
What does it say?
It's like
Ooh, we're waiting.
he's two of the Jacksons. Okay, we're hearing the phone.
Yeah, see, you could hear my phone thinking.
Yeah, if you decipher the digital there, you'll find out what Google's going to say.
And it's thinking.
But a bunch of choppy sounds on my
My
end.
name is Lawrence Terode.
Lawrence Terode.
Lawrence Terode. All right.
That's the T.
My name's Lawrence Terode.
I would have gone with T
So
myself.
my question is Mr. T married?
Ooh, that's good.
I think we can market, since the reusable bag phenomenon is such a big thing, why not have Mr. T bags? They would sell
Nice.
Like T-bag.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sell like something. Hold on. I want to turn
Use my bags. You put a lot of stuff in it.
That's pretty much how it would go.
The commercial would start with, "Are you holding a lot of gold chains?
There we go.
I'll help you."
Yeah, but then you can slap it on somebody's face.
Cash for gold with Mr.
So
T.
what was your question?
No, then you can
Mr.
slap it
T
on somebody's face.
Is Mr. T married?
Google's going to say, "Don't patronize me" when you ask like that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun.
While we're waiting, this little musical interlude is brought to you by
Dun, dun, dun.
Joey and the A-Teamers.
Please read what it says, Daryl.
Is it went away
Up top.
up top. Okay, Bill Gates interview. I have
No.
news.
Read what the question
Oh.
ended up being.
Is Mr. T married? No, Google to say me like the other stuff. Okay.
All right, I think we should move on. Does anybody else have any other questions?
No.
No.
All right, let's go. All right, let's get on to marriage. Here we go. Let's get off on marriage. No, wait. Okay, what's the history of marriage? I noticed, Daryl, you were looking it up a little earlier. Did you find any information for us on that?
Negatory.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. Now how we're going to fill this in. Well, what I'd like you at home to do is go to the show notes and click on History of Marriage. You'll get everything you need to know there, and then you can hit unpause. So, marriage, what do you guys know of marriage?
Well, the history of marriage would be, that people wanted exclusivity, and it was a way to for people to get that exclusivity of sex from a partner.
Well, it's a more official version of monogamy, which
Yeah.
apparently started tens of thousands of years ago, according to estimates. But it's like the civilized world way of identifying a couple being true to one another.
The hell is that?
Is that your wife snoring?
Or the dog humping?
Oh, Paul,
Booger.
We're talking about me?
that's messed up.
There's something coming over the line, and it sounds like...
A groan.
We don't know if it's...
It is. Yes, it is. It is our puppy dog snoring.
Oh,
Goodness gracious.
Kick him or something.
kick a dog. That's it.
So, anyway...
We endorse kicking dogs here on Incoherent.
Exactly. Civilization.
No,
I think as things got organized with mankind, marriage was... Well, actually, wasn't it originally a financial thing where the father would give the daughter for money?
For a dowry.
Dowry?
Like, you didn't get a son, so at least I could sell my daughter off. Maybe that was it. We should have done some research on this. Let's move on to our own opinion.
Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
I kind of feel that...
Yeah, the whole intention was to give your own opinions of it.
Yeah, it varies according to different cultures, but I feel it's really principally an institution in which maybe like interpersonal relationships, usually intimate and sexual, of course, are acknowledged. So, I don't know, when defined broadly, marriage is considered a cultural universal.
How come Paul gets a teleprompter and we don't?
I have to disagree, Paul, because you didn't tell me anything about the history of marriage.
I didn't scroll down
In
far
European
enough.
history, marriage was the way that two kingdoms would come together, or two households. So, how often is it portrayed that it's like, the prince is going to marry the princess from some other kingdom, and it'll be peace across the land, and we can join forces.
Well, no,
It first appeared in 1250.
Well, and I have to add to that, when we look at marriage customs of our ancestors, we discover several striking facts. For example, for most Western history, marriage was not a mere personal matter concerning the husband and wife, but rather the business of two families which brought them together.
Let's say we respect our audience enough that we can just give them a link to the wiki article.
All right, whatever. Let's move on.
All right.
I do have to agree that it was with Kale that really to have sex.
Yeah. And
Well,
even before that, what's interesting to me is why monogamy? Because we're apes. And all apes, their setup is the dominant male has sex with all the females and tries to keep the other males away from having sex.
Well, if we look at it,
that extra gene.
if we look at it evolutionarily,
We don't throw our poop.
We may have.
We want to.
We want to, but we restrain ourselves.
Well, looking at through evolution, maybe there was just so many problems with people and civilizations that didn't have marriage that they just all got wiped out.
Well, actually, what I was about to interject here, what I've noticed is that just regardless of culture, regardless of geographical location, of economic status or anything like that, marriage has always been the beginning of a family. When, yes, two other families join into one, but they establish then their own, it's the core of the family. From there come children and then their own family tree going forward. So whether you're a king or whether you're a pauper, you're still always going to have two people historically coming together as one. Now, admittedly, marriage as a ceremony has been, historically speaking, one male and one female, yes, because that's what it took to perpetuate the species, the family. Without two, a man and a woman coming together having children, well, the species ended. So that's where it actually came. That's the whole main point and purpose historically, was to start a family.
Maybe
if that makes sense.
There are also some civilizations where harems were the norm, so it's not always one man, one woman.
But I think it's the
True, very, very true.
I think it's probably stability, because obviously if you had two people to take care of the child, the child would be more likely to grow up and stay alive. Whereas if the man just left the woman and the kid was there with just the woman, especially in olden days when it was rough out there.
When women, especially when they're having children, they're very vulnerable. And if we're talking about ancient times, they needed protection for them and their child.
Yeah.
And so it became, it's my child, so I take care of it. And if you notice, in other species, the males do that too. So that's not too strange of a thing, but...
And having the institution of marriage helps identify who the father probably is, at least. And, there's a time when, marriage was early that it helped establish that. It's like, okay, this is the couple, and any children that she has are presumably the man's child. And then, Maury Povich came along and ruined all that.
Yeah. Dick!
You are not the father.
Not the mama!
Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah,
that was something else.
Put that in the show notes. Okay, well. All right, so what do you guys think of marriage at a younger age? Because it used to be before, you as marriage became a normal part of society, people would get married very young. Now, part of that was because we didn't live as long. Now we live a long time. Mm-hmm. And what do you guys think about, is marriage at a young age still a good idea or not so much, or does it matter?
No.
I asked 3 questions. That was my fault. I'm sorry. Could you please answer in complete sentences, Kale, or I won't call on you next time.
You didn't call on me this time.
You're right. Sit down and shut up, or I'll call the principal.
Well,
I'm a teacher.
I think if people get married at a young age, that's fine. But personally, I think people should wait. It's almost like a try before you buy kind of feel. It's
I agree.
like you really want to know what you're getting yourself into. Dude,
Literally.
that's
what she said.
Sorry,
that's
so
next
dead
week.
when they hear this.
I can tell the future.
Linda's already looking at us.
You're better at it now than you were next week. How do you say that? You're better at this now than you are next week.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Wow.
And you were in the future.
Yeah.
But I think, at a young age, like with growing up, and it's more the norm that you graduate high school, you continue your education in college, and hopefully find a job, and then you can have the stability to raise a family.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like
in our country.
In our country, if you get married early, a lot of times that may or not work out. But if I don't know, for me, I would say wait. Nowadays.
What do you think, Kale? Oh, you said no. Daryl, what do you think? No, go ahead, Kale.
That's what I said. I agree with Paul that you should wait. In our country, you should wait until you're older, because it's better if you're financially established, and your maturity level allows you to pick somebody who you're more compatible with, or you have things in common with. Whereas when you're younger, it's who will let me have sex with them, and that's
and play my video games.
Yes.
Yeah, because as you get older, then when you hit maybe 25 or so, you start really focusing your goals, where you're going as a person, and at that point, it may be totally different than.
And at
what
25, maybe you're out of college.
Out of college, yeah.
Or at least you've
starting in the real world type feel, but.
Well, we're becoming more of a nation of late bloomers, I think, because a lot of people don't have their major determined before they go to college. Some people do, but I think there's there are societal norms, and then there are individuals, and those norms work great for some people and not so great for others. I think you have to kind of establish for yourself whether or not you want to get married early, if you think you're ready for it, and everything like that. And one of the things that you can point to with marriage is that it's not always successful, but I think the more careful you are going into it, the more success you should have, because you're going to know where you are, know where your spouse is, and just be more comfortable in your own skin. So the more you can establish who you actually are as an individual, I think the more you're going to realize what you're in for when you do get married.
What say ye, Booger?
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't remember whether or not it was something that one of you gentlemen brought up in a previous podcast, or if I heard it somewhere else, but the concept of pubescence is a relatively new concept. If you check out history, you'll notice that it usually went from childhood pretty much to, what are they, the bar mitzvah age of about 13, you were suddenly an adult. There was no middle ground until, like I said, recent history. So back when people were getting married at much younger ages than they do now, there was a real necessity for it. It was marry or perish. Whereas nowadays, because of I guess technological advances and everything else, we're allowed to have a middle stage of our lives where we can try to figure out what the heck we want with our education or our future as a whole. So there's no more need to figure out how to cobble shoes by age 12, or how to, be a carpenter by 12, or anything like that. You can actually do what you quote unquote want to do instead of just picking up the family trade to survive and to operate like a village. As a result of all of these new advances, I think that, no, we don't need to get married at a younger age anymore like we as a society used to. We can afford to examine our lives, examine ourselves, examine our mates. Now, at the same time, I do not believe in dismissing. As a matter of fact, I believe this should encourage the concept of courtship, getting to know someone who you want to spend the rest of your life with, and getting to know them better, as opposed to the example you brought earlier of a dowry. That could be discarded. Now you can actually find someone who you're emotionally compatible with, and you'll be a lot less likely to simply discard because it doesn't work anymore, or you're just not comfortable with them, or whatever.
And I think you touched upon one of the things about career that I was going to mention, because I think that in addition to people taking longer to marry, we're also much more apt to jump from career to career during our lives. I think that's more of a technological thing. Just our society is less set in its ways about you grew up in a family that was farming the land, and you're going to grow up to be a farmer. It's not so much like that anymore. You can usually jump beyond the bounds of where your family has set its trenches.
It's also the career. It's both sides now. It's no longer just the man.
Yeah.
Doing the career, and the woman
the traditional roles
is the mom at home, and so you have career women that now it's just may not be ready to 35 is like the age now to settle down and maybe have a kid or something.
Okay, I'm going to kind of hold off and stop everybody right here, because we're getting in the meat of the conversation. I think it's important for our listeners, whoever's left, to know what our experience with marriage is. So let's just go around and talk about our experience or inexperience with marriage.
I'll fail this time. No.
I'll start off. I got married at 25 to someone. It did not work out. We got divorced about 5 years later. I am now married to the most wonderful person in the world, and we're expecting our first child. Paul, go.
I was married in 2001.
Oh, dude. You should have been ready for this.
I know, 2001.
You got a chance, Kale.
So,
take a second think.
and I actually dated my wife from 1995 until then. So we were married. Who's snoring?
It's the dog.
Dude.
No, wait, look, Mr. T fell asleep.
So I did court my wife for 6 years.
This is boring, apparently.
And I tried it out and said go for it, and I signed the contract in 01.
The audience fell asleep.
And here I am. Don't know if I'm still married as the audience is listening to this, but
I'm definitely going to wait till the podcast because this connection keeps breaking up. I can't hear half of what you're saying, especially over Joey's cackling over there.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, like I was saying,
your dog's hilarious.
Booger and I tried to get married first in 1993, but they denied us down at the court, so we said forget it. Anyways.
So Joey
Kale?
didn't catch any of that, did he? All right.
Yeah. So
That was good.
I've been married 11 years as of this coming August 18th.
Ooh, he's good.
Yeah,
And,
look at that. Date.
I was engaged for an entire year before we got
Don't
married,
ask your wife.
and we actually I have an advantage here. And we actually lived together for probably 2 years, 5 years. 5 years before we actually got married.
You got a doghouse.
5 years.
Yeah, but she didn't get mad at that. See, so it was okay.
I know. Our wives are cool.
But anyway, and I
can
thought
joke.
that was a great advantage to live together for 5 years because we definitely knew we were going to be partners after that long period of time.
All right, and I've never been married, and I guess it's logical that if I ever do get married, I'm the closest I've ever been to marriage, right? Since
That makes sense.
Yeah.
right, but
Because you're in a relationship, you have a girlfriend.
aside from the logic of it, yes, I've been dating for 2 years, more than 2 years, and it's been great, and I really love her, and I think that eventually the question's going to pop. So, and
Yep.
it's not happening right here on the show,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be a little lame.
Yeah, she should be here.
honey.
asking over podcast. Oh my God!
I know you're probably relaxing at home listening to this right now.
Don't even kid. No, don't even kid.
okay,
Don't even
right,
kid. We're gonna
right.
move on. Booger, go.
Okay, I met my wife in college back in January '94. We were married in July of '96. Daryl and Joey, you probably remember Oklahoma from then.
Yeah.
Both of you were in my wedding.
Yes.
And this coming July 4th, we'll make 17 very long years.
Holy crap! It's been 17 years. 17 years. Well, we need Scott and James.
Did you mean to describe them as
No, no.
very long years? I think Anissa's in
I'm
the
sorry,
room
say
with
again?
you.
Oh,
right?
we're not gonna last 17 hours. Those things are gonna come in here. They're gonna come in here. They're gonna kill us. Game over, man. Okay, go ahead. I'm
wait a
sorry.
minute. Now, I also want to say that prior to being remarried myself, my parents were they were married about 4 years before I was born, and then promptly divorced about 4 years after I was born. My family, my father had 6 brothers and 7 sisters, most of which had been divorced. So even though we were a very strongly Catholic family, for some reason divorce ran rampant in my family, and I was raised around it a lot. So when I got married, when I met my wife, I had pretty much promised myself that I would never get married unless it was going to be the one and only time. I was not going to try to follow the unofficial family tradition of getting married for a few years and then leaving it whenever it was inconvenient. And so far, I've been able to hold true to it.
You did find the
Very
red
good.
hole.
Very good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I feel like I better mention some times and dates here. Or Kim's gonna get on my ass, which we do sometimes. We've been married 5 years as of this August 16th. So there. All right. So we've all had some, many of us, much
I believe
more
it's been 5 years.
experience with, 2008, with marriage. So let's move on to the stages of marriage and how we feel about them, or the stages leading to marriage, or however you want to do it. The first one is dating. I want to kind of go on to something that Kale was saying about living with someone. I think that's incredibly important and something that was never allowed in the past. In fact, my wife's parents weren't cool at first with kind of us living together before we were married because they were very traditional. But they got to know me, and actually her brother ended up, I think, living with someone for I don't know the whole story. But at any rate, they ended up being okay with it, which is good because I would never marry someone that I have not lived with, because the marriage is just a title. You know, it could mean something to both of you, but the reality of it is if you can't live with that person, you cannot be married with them.
Yeah,
or you'll just suffer for the rest of your days.
That's also true.
There's a huge difference. Yeah. I know people who are the first day they have lived together is after they've been married.
That is insane.
And it's totally different when you're dating and not living with each other, because you see each other at your best, all looking good, feeling good. But when you start living with each other and somebody gets sick or gets pissed off, or like you're just there 24/7,
shit gets real.
Right, man.
Granted, you could get lucky.
We didn't Mr. T to say that.
So and also bills. The car breaks down, money, money issues, anything, all those issues life issues that you can work out with each other and have experience. Basically, it's like having an internship before you get a job.
Yeah.
There's something romantic about the idea of just getting married straight out without going through that step, but I think I tend to agree with you all that, even though it's not the traditional way to do it.
I see no romance in that.
Really?
I see that does not seem romantic to me. That seems... Yes, just I am rendered speechless.
Speak.
It just seems problems waiting to happen.
But really, if especially if you're living at home and stuff, you need a place to do it. So having somebody, if you're living with them,
at home,
it's
quietly.
just
But I kind of think the romance comes from it's like you're professing that you're so in love that we'll find a way to overcome any hardships. We trust each other. View. Right, we just trust each other enough that we're going to love each other through any problems that come up. Whether or not that's realistic,
then you wake up
that depends on
like, damn!
What the hell?
Well, I definitely want to interject what my point of view on this one too.
Please.
Now, everybody here knows about my background. I am considerably religious, and to me, a marriage is more than just for lack of a better term, social contract. It is a very religious aspect of a family, and oh heck, I had about 1,000 things going through my head, and I pretty much forgot what the heck the question was in order to make sure I'm staying on it. What was the question? One more time.
We're just talking about living together and before marriage.
Oh yes. Okay. So, naturally, most people who are Christian are against living together. Now, I will go ahead. I'll be straight out honest. My wife and I, we did live together for 2 years before we were actually fully married. However, as much of a struggle as it was, we did remain pure during those 2 years. Yes, I know. I see that look on Phil's face.
What the hell?
All of us had that face, especially this guy.
Actually, that surprised me.
Yeah, we did. We remained true to our faith in God and to our promise to each other throughout that whole 2 years. So again, it was not the easiest thing to do, but I did it.
Was it the Clinton version of sex, or was it the real version?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Wow,
that's what we.
That's what this means.
Well, no, I am not a cigar smoker, if that answers your question.
Okay.
Wait a second.
But
Daryl, help me out here.
I want to go ahead and interject. First of all, when people were getting, I'm sorry, what?
Nothing. Go.
When people were getting married beforehand, either with or without a dowry, without living together, again, the society was a completely different dynamic back then. I will agree with that. However, because this is more than just something secular and social in my perspective, I believe that the purity of it should still remain and can still remain. That there are lots of feasible ways to maintain courtship and still maintain a long-lasting relationship after marriage if you don't live together. There are, as a matter of fact, if I had personally realized what those were, I think I would have been better off practicing those beforehand instead of doing it the way we did. But that being said, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I regret our relationship or anything we did. I don't. However, just on a general speaking basis, I don't think that it's required to live together to really be able to maintain or to ensure a secure relationship with your spouse. Matter of fact, I wish I had prepared a little bit with getting some statistics and some sources. Unfortunately, I don't have them on me right now, but there are studies. I'll see if I can get Daryl for you to put in the show notes. There are studies that show that marriages that begin with couples who lived together first are less likely to be successful. They have a higher divorce rate than those that don't. And I think there's something really to be at least looked at in regards to that.
Well, I think I have some comments about that because I figured this would probably come up during the podcast.
You are psychic.
And I think it's just kind of, in science they call this a self-selecting group. And I think that in a way you wind up basically saying couples that didn't live together before marriage stay together longer. That's not necessarily an indication of whether or not it's a good marriage. It might just be an indication of people who already have religious views on marriage. Mm-hmm. And they decide that even if the marriage has turned sour, they're still going to go hell or high water to make it work. And I think that's part of what makes that statistic happen. Whereas people that are less traditional are going to live together beforehand, more likely. They get married, and when things go sour, they're more likely to give up the boat before a more traditional couple would. So I think those groups wind up going the way they do because they're self-selecting.
And I think too, you have to
I think that's an excellent perspective.
And then Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think too, this we have to look at the studies and stuff, but there's also the group that start living together and don't end up getting married. So they're not included in that study.
But then they fall under common law also.
But maybe them not getting married, they're not counted in that statistic.
Right.
I take a very rational view of it. I mean, the idea of marriage, I think, is a very nice and romantic one. However, I don't think in reality it is what's important. And so I think kind of take an opposite view of Booger. I think it's very figurative. You know, I feel marriage is more of a title, something you can use to connect to other people, but it's all very ethereal. Whereas the reality of the situation is, if you're not compatible with somebody in the right ways, then you're going to have a very difficult life. And I know that because I went through that. And when I say compatibility, I'm not necessarily talking about that you like the same things. Because my first wife, my ex-wife, we liked a lot of the same things, but we just did not connect at all. So I feel like you need to be... I feel like the important thing is, in the first part of your relationship with someone, is finding out first if you're compatible. That's like the first stage. And then the big next step should be, can you live with that person? Not marriage. Marriage can be something you can add on later, but it's not really where the big change happens. And I think that...
Also, whether you're sexually compatible.
Oh, that's
really
another thing.
important.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And
because...
Yeah, go ahead.
There's been times when, that I thought that I was with a partner and I thought, wow, this will be great. And for whatever reason, the sex wasn't good. It just didn't work out that way.
Sorry about that, Gil.
Wow.
Well, whatever reason.
Nice.
Is that, when I...
What's Heather going to think when she hears this?
Oh, she knows.
She knows. Well, she was... No, never mind. I'm kidding.
That, that was one thing I was...
Devil's trying.
I made sure that I was sexually compatible with my wife before we got married, and that I didn't have to worry whether we were going to be sexually compatible once we
'cause
were
that could
married.
that could be an issue of infidelity.
I think we're
later
taking
on.
two sides of the coin here. We definitely have the secular side. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
And the religious side. Now, Paul.
Right, and
I
I
got
understand that for religious people that's not something they can do. I'm just saying, for me, that was definitely a real reason to live together.
And actually, that's a really good point, too, because religion is going to be something that's going to hold a family together. So if you're going to put those constraints on your marriage where you might end up with a person you're not as compatible with and you're just kind of hoping and, rolling the dice and you don't know if you can live with them, you don't know if you're going to enjoy sex with them, then if those things don't work out, you've got religion to keep you together. But for someone like me who's not as religious, if I end up with someone like that, it's very difficult.
I would
very
much rather
difficult.
depend on love to keep us together than,
But love's but I feel like love's ethereal as well. I mean, and let me put it this way, because
what most people think of as love, though, is infatuation.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have to say that I've been infatuated. Well, go ahead.
I think at first.
At first,
At first, it's all because that's all fresh. It's all new.
Right.
You're touching.
But
you're
but the
doing
problem is that
things.
when you're looking at a long, yes.
But then later on, it's like you're loving who they are.
But when you're looking at a long-term relationship, the thing is you can be infatuated with someone who you are really not compatible with in a long-term relationship, and that feeling of love really can never form into that long-term relationship. And maybe if you force it, it can, but I think that it may not be there, no matter how hard you try to turn that infatuation into long-term love. It's not. And going into my first relationship with my first marriage, there's a lot more to it than that. But I was infatuated at first, but then it became more of a codependent thing. At any rate, we got married, and we both knew it was not working, but you get trapped in it real easy. And we both loved each other, but now that I know what it's like to really be in love with somebody, that was not love. That was two people who stayed together because circumstances warranted it, and neither of us wanted to take a chance to mess the thing up.
So like roommates.
Yeah,
really good friends. As
Sarah and
roommates.
Sarah's my first wife. Sarah and I were roommates. That's what we were, and we had both decided basically to just be okay with that. And my life with Kim now is far more than that. It's interesting how I know that it's love and a deep love, because I never question it. And it's not hard. It's easy, and it's comparing it to, and of course, for those of you who knew Sarah, she's very strong-willed and difficult to be with. And so I feel like I have two very different ends of the spectrum. But going back to what we were talking about is just that I really don't know what you're talking about.
As far as you trying,
You love
I was
Kim.
going to say.
I love
What I was going to say about what Paul was saying about loving the person, and
we're talking about love. That's right.
That's what you start out. You love them, but I think as your marriage goes on, at least in my experience, is that love deepens and it gets better. And I love my wife much more now than when we got married, and I don't feel bad about saying that because it's true.
Yeah, you're getting something up, my man.
I think the way it eventually becomes like what I have with Christine is I just feel like the things are right when we're together, and since we have kind of a long distance thing going on, it just seems like when we're not together, things aren't good. It feels like things are strained all the time. There's separation, but when we spend time together, everything seems right, and that's the kind of feeling that would lead to hopefully us,
Moving to the next
things
step.
together, moving to the next step, and being happy together.
Yeah, if I could, I want to make a comment on what Cale was just talking about. I cannot agree more, especially with my relationship with my wife. Yes, we were in love very early in our friendship, but here it is, 16 and a half years later,
Cylon years.
and I could definitely say that I love my wife. I'm sorry, what?
Okay, say that again, because it sounds like you said you lost your wife because the connection went bad. So say you love your wife again.
Yeah.
It's been 19 years.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
Called out.
Been corrected.
Yeah, that's how long we've known each other. It's
Oh, okay.
19 years. Yes.
I thought you were.
I know. I understand. Yeah.
But no, I can definitely say that I love my wife a whole lot more than back when we were first started our relationship. Love is something that is always worked on. It's always built upon. Always a work in progress. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be stagnant. It's never going to be good enough. It's always going to be improved upon. Even whether it needs it or not, is just going to. That's part of what love is by its pure nature. And if it doesn't get built upon, it will deteriorate. And next thing you know, you're going to end up with a sour relationship. So. I mean, whether I wanted to work on it or not, it just naturally gets worked on, and it does get built on in a very positive manner, at least in our relationship. So I can't really articulate it just enough or properly just how happy I am in my life with the fact that I've been able to find someone as compatible and as well meshed with me and my personality and just in who I am as a being and my soul, as with Nissa has.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on from that then to the actual area of marriage. I mean, we talked a little bit about compatibility and such. So I'll open this up with when I got married to my ex-wife, Sarah. I wasn't really in love with her, but you kind of fool yourself into thinking you are, and I did care for her. But here's the real reason, which I couldn't even admit to myself, that I married her, was because we met on May 18th, and it was going to be on a Friday, and the next year was going to be a Saturday, and I knew if I could schedule it, I could propose on a Saturday, and then in a year, on a Sunday, we could do the wedding. And the math was just perfect. So that's when I made the decision to go ahead and marry her, because it worked out mathematically.
That was a poor decision.
Yes, it was. And she's told me since we've been divorced and everything,
Marriage.
she has told me that when I proposed to her, which by the way, I did take her out on a cliffside to propose to her, and she had part of her thinking I was going to push her over.
If you didn't say yes.
No, just that she didn't know I was going to propose. Just why is she taking me out here towards the edge of this cliff
With a bag.
Yeah. But when she realized what she was doing, she was like, well, I did push for it before, but now I don't really want to marry him. But oh well, it's my fault, so I'll better say yes. But it's these things you don't. She didn't admit that to herself either.
Yeah.
You get into these things and you don't see clearly, and you don't until later you can look back on it.
Hindsight.
Well, I want to know if everybody else thinks this, is that I really believe that the first year of marriage is always the hardest, and people have told me that. And until I got married, even though we'd lived together before, that first year of marriage actually was more difficult than the living together beforehand, because there's more. I didn't realize till I got married that there was much more in marriage that you had to deal with. That when we were single, we just kind of let it go.
I think even if you live together until you marry, you're probably still going to put on a better face for the significant other.
And I think the woman
maybe,
does
but I
especially.
didn't.
Yeah.
I was always like,
Because the thing is,
this
like,
is me.
it's always
Whatever, you like it or not.
Like, I think the threat of not being asked to be married is more real than the threat of being divorced after you're married. So it's like after you marry, I think everyone lets their hair down, and then it's this is who I really am.
Yeah, well, like what Booger was saying about working on your marriage, I think that you can never just sit back, because you always have to work on your marriage to make it good.
Yeah.
And if you're working together, then you actually grow together, and so your marriage becomes stronger. And if you don't work on your marriage together, it will separate.
Well, it's like any relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a deeper relationship than, let's say, you have with someone you work with. But like, look at your kids and stuff. You can't just sit back and just let them grow up and stuff. You have to be involved. Yeah. It's just the same as your marriage. You just can't take for granted that it's just everything's going to be fine all the time. Yeah. You do need to understand each other's feelings. If there's a problem, you have to resolve it quickly and not let it fester and turn into something bad, or even something as simple as just a compliment or something can really, make someone feel better and know that you still care.
My first year of marriage was about the same. It's I think a lot of this might have, and I'm talking about Kim now, my current wife. I like to say my real wife, my only real wife. Anyway, when I look back, I think it might be because I was married beforehand and it didn't work out, and I was always unsure. There was never a point in my life with Sarah that I was ever sure that I wanted to be married with her, and maybe because of that. With Kim, it has always been sure. From the beginning of our relationship, I knew we were going to be together. I knew we were going to get married, and when I proposed to her, and it was so much less stressful with her because I wanted to be married to her. When I proposed, it was a surprise party and everything. It was like it was meant to be. And then the first year was just. It seemed about the same, but we were married, so it actually seemed better in a way. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, but each year has gotten better. But I might be seeing it from the point of view of someone who's been through a not so great marriage, and so everything seems great. But it just seems like it just works and it's good.
As much as I appreciate, we've taken on a really serious tone here, but I think we need to take it up a notch. So let's go around and talk about the thing that annoys you the most about your wife.
Oh man, I didn't even get to put my part in it.
What annoys me most
I can
about
bring
my
that
wife?
up. I can bring that up because I'm not married.
No, that's not fair.
What annoys me about my wife so much is that I just love her too much. That's what.
Okay, I'm going to be the man here, and I'm actually going to say something.
Chicken.
And I'm going to say something that Kim actually doesn't know.
Yeah, but my
because
wife's
I've been
right
wondering
here.
how to tell her. No.
You know what though? You know what, Joey? Before you pull the trigger on this, realize you don't really have to. I'm just saying.
Fine.
All right. Okay.
Do it. Let's throw our bank cards on the table.
That's right. I'm going to do it.
On the table.
I'm going to do it because I was going to bring it up to her anyway. I just never had a chance to. So.
Oh wait, bringing it up in the podcast. The only thing that can be worse
right,
than
Kim, this is
proposing
it.
through
You
the
ready?
podcast.
All right.
All right. Okay.
Kim, the thing that annoys me about you, and it's just sometimes, is you have a tendency, and it's not your fault, so it's fine, is you just chew and swallow a little loud sometimes. That's it.
While eating, I hope.
So she
While eating.
Why is she chewing it?
Yeah.
Eating, food, drinking.
Oh, okay.
But it's, she's
like
got
it when
powerful
that's
throat
loud.
muscles, so I completely understand.
All right. I'm laying it on the table.
Oh, Paul's going. Go, Paul.
If I gotta watch another frickin' episode of The Voice or some stupid ass game show like that,
To be fair,
I'm gonna frickin' kill myself.
I'm not married, but I still have to air my thing here.
That actually
Please,
reminded
please,
me
no
of
more
one.
Bad Girls
I can
Club.
actually say.
Please. Or maybe just not the Oprah channel at all.
Dude, I'm trying to
I'd be
watch-
happy with that.
Dude, I'm trying to watch Dance Moms and you're interrupting it.
Dance Moms.
The one thing that actually really does annoy me about Linda is that she will watch Everybody Loves Raymond again and again and again until I want to shoot myself. And I cannot stand to sit and watch that with her anymore.
So and the fact is, not everybody loves Raymond.
No.
I actually liked it the first maybe 2 times, and I'd
Everybody
seen
hates
every
Chris.
episode.
So wait, let me get this straight.
And so if
Wait,
Booger
Booger,
hasn't soiled himself yet, he's right now in the same room with his wife.
Yeah, but what don't you like about your wife?
Yeah, say it loud and proud.
Oh, here we go.
Well, first of all, you do realize you guys totally skipped me when it came to the last topic as well that I really wanted to talk
It was
about.
Daryl's fault. He wanted.
Okay, my fault.
He came up with a stupid idea, and then we're on the doghouse. Well, I am. You guys just talk about about TV shows. I went like all the way down
All the
her
way down
throat.
south.
And, wait, that came out wrong. That came out. That's what he said. Ah! Go ahead, Booger.
Okay, what else?
Okay, you can
I
do
want to go ahead.
Yeah, do the first part, and then you can continue on to what you wanted to say before.
Yeah. Oh, okay. As far as it's hard for me to decide because this is so bloody many of them. But no, I'm just kidding.
That's the
Someone just got punched in the shoulder.
That's what she said.
No. Probably one of the things is her love of movies with the words in the title, Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean. So dang many of them. It drives me bloody insane, and constantly watching them over and over and over.
Bloody hell.
So you don't like seeing it on a
Okay,
screen?
guys, first of all, Lord of the Rings is my all-time favorite movie, and I haven't watched them over and over again since Bernadette was 6.
You're not supposed to be in this podcast, lady. You gotta wait till next time. That's your response time.
Yeah, I didn't get to say anything.
Shut your woman up.
She can't hear you, so I'll go ahead and let her know that you're not supposed to be in this podcast
No.
because we're going to have another one later on where we can have you listen
actually
to this and you can
We're
interject your own
tell her we're
parts.
I
kidding.
repeat, screw you.
Oh, nice.
What do you say?
Tell her if she ever comes down here, I'll watch Lord of the Rings with her because I love that movie too.
So no of does.
No of those.
What do you like black
And,
comedies
okay,
with of
Kale,
duh?
Kale, I am not going to tell my wife that she can watch movies with you. I'm sorry, it's not happening.
Especially with of the Debbie of the Dallas.
No Jabba of the Hutt.
So so basically you guys all have TV shows and
Hey, does she like Return of the
I'm the only
Jedi?
man here.
Just asking.
Matter of fact, kind of.
Okay.
Joey gets his man card
No, but
back.
Does she like Attack?
But no,
of the
what
Clones?
I wanted to interject earlier was whenever Kale asked about the first year, I'm going to say it not in my particular marriage. The first year was not the hardest. Because you have to understand, I had a very unique experience in the fact that not only did I join the Army in the middle of my marriage, but I joined it after we've been married for 10 years. The Army is not conducive for marriages that have been well established when you join them. On top of it all, it's a special needs family. So it really made things difficult for being able to just be a husband, let alone a soldier. That in and of itself probably was the hardest part of this marriage. Oh, something else I want to throw in, guys. It turns out, it's something you might want to know. The Army has decided officially just last week that they do not want to keep me anymore. So I am medically unfit.
Wait. Is that good news or bad news?
No, actually, I've come to embrace it. It's good news.
Oh, go Booger!
And somewhere between 2 to 6 months from now, they will determine just how medically unfit I am. They'll determine whether or not they're simply going to discharge me or if they're going to medically retire me. Either way, your tax money is going to be put in my pocket for the rest of my natural life. So
Yes.
thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
All right, and then they moved to Southern California.
But
You know, I gotta say something about the hardest year of marriage. I would think that the last year of marriage would probably be the hardest because you're either dead or you're divorced.
Okay,
right?
let's use that as a segue.
the dead one, you
Paul.
might not know it's coming.
Well, yeah.
So-
Well, divorce you may not either. Let's use that as a segue to go into divorce and the next thing, which is the state of marriage today, because there's so many divorces. Unless you would like to say something.
Well, I wanted to just ask about the special
the
needs
annoying.
thing. Was that about undiagnosed medical conditions going on? Is that what you meant with that?
Oh, about the special needs? Well,
Yeah.
yes, and then that's for both my wife and my daughter.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to clear that up because we weren't certain.
Yeah, I didn't want to make any
Oh, okay, nope.
poor tasting joke, which I almost
No
did.
problem.
And then Daryl was like, okay, so
I turned into Mr. Bean for a
He can
moment.
shoot a gun pretty good now.
yeah, okay. So let's move into divorce and the state of marriage today, because as we all know, divorce is happening far more frequently than it has in the past. And I'm the only one here who can speak of divorce, so all I'm going to say is this. Basically, divorce is way, way too difficult, all right? Because the way it worked out with Sarah and I is we were apart for a while, long distance wise, and we realized we were fine without each other, and it made us realize we don't need to be in the relationship with each other. And we both decided to have a divorce, and we had no kids, and so it was should have been very simple divorce. It took months and months. I did it over LegalZoom. We had no property that that's a whole different thing, but basically we didn't do anything that was difficult. And it was the simplest type of divorce, and it was so hard to do. On the other hand, getting married, all we had to do is go down and get something signed in front of somebody. I think these are completely opposite. It's too easy to get married and too hard to get divorced. And, you may say that that's wrong because so many people are getting divorced, but I think some people need to be divorced. I've learned that now. I was one of them. I kind of wish I would have been divorced earlier, but you keep trying and trying and trying, and you shouldn't be. You should be getting divorced. But one of the things that makes it so difficult is it's so hard to get a divorce.
Well, I think it's just the legal issues as you.
Well, I think it's made purposely difficult to divorce. I mean, we didn't really have anything that needed to be worried about. We didn't put our property into it at the time, and there wasn't anything with material issues. We basically checked off, we're getting divorced, and that's it. And there's no kids, and let's get divorced. And it still took forever. No lawyers, nothing. And it was still months and months of a process. Not yet. I see dead people.
Not yet. They just heard you.
Oh, sorry.
That's quite
That's all right.
So
it's entertaining.
Anyway, so I'll let it go from here to you guys. I think that divorce should be easier, and I think more people that need to do it should do it.
Well, that could be why there's people that separate and
but I'm not looking.
They don't legally divorce.
Let me say. I'm sorry. I'm talking about not having kids, though. I know kids changes that around completely. So I'll just say that. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Just the people who separate, and probably because of kids, stay married, but don't live with each other. And it's the whole issue of custody and property and all that other stuff. And maybe it's just too hard to go through that process. And so it's just easier just to call it a day. And then maybe when somebody else finds somebody who wants to get married, then they'll go through it.
Yeah. I don't really have much of an opinion on that. I think people get divorced if they want to, and yeah, it might be difficult to do, but I think that maybe it shouldn't be really easy to get divorced, as Joey was saying, because then you actually do need to work on your marriage to make it work. And so if it's really easy, I know some people, they get all emotional about it and then they want a divorce right away. And if it was that easy, maybe they would, rather than actually working through a problem on their marriage. And I think some people are doing that now. Maybe that's why there's more divorces, is because people aren't willing to work through things anymore. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, and so they're gone.
Well, we get advertised too that like a pill fixes everything, So it's like the marriage pill.
Yeah.
But I think there's a point where working on something, you want to work on it. You can fool yourself into thinking you're working enough when you're working more than you should be.
Right.
And I
need
think
to recognize that.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be recognized. So, and then at that point, divorce can become another barrier when maybe it shouldn't be. But I kind of see what you're saying. If it was just like you push a button and we're divorced, yeah, maybe that's not the best thing.
I'm not sure, like you go
like
to
well,
the
they can do that for
website.
marriage,
Yeah.
though.
Google divorce. Just push here.
I mean, look at with marriage, like you said, you can just get married like in an instant.
We drove to Vegas.
You almost
and
can.
I think I'm on-
got the license and got married
I
that
am
day.
on board with you there. Like, I'm not 100% certain divorce ought to be easier, but I think marriage maybe should be more difficult. And unfortunately,
I don't
think
marriage should be difficult.
Well, I mean, maybe more
Getting married.
more difficult
Only
to
if you're
get
gay.
Only
proceed
gay.
because the thing
We're getting there.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I think because there is kind of like a moral culture behind the whole thing, you're more likely to say be referred to a counselor to make sure that you're ready for divorce or that you can't work things out. But where was the counseling prior to marriage?
Good call.
Right?
Very
Like,
good
who
point.
counsels you to find out whether or not you really ought to pull the plug?
Oh, that's
See that I want to go ahead and interject my point based on what Daryl's talking about, because in the Catholic Church where Nissa and I got married, we actually were required
That's right.
to go through premarital counseling, something called a pre-Cana, and it was a 2-day process. I don't remember exactly everything that we did, but we went through. It was basically somewhat like a con, where it was like a Comic-Con kind of thing, where a bunch of people were talking. We had a few little exercises to go through. It was designed to make sure that we were going to be responsible adults and not just jump into a marriage, mainly because of how high the divorce rate really has been getting. And with that in mind, I agree. I don't think divorce should be made easier. Matter of fact, I think adults should realize that what marriage is. Marriage is not just something where people get into. So like I said before, a social contract. In fact, it's matrimony. It is a joining of two people in one in the eyes of God and everyone else. It's not just something you can say. It's not something we, as in our throwaway culture, can throw away so easily. I don't know whether or not I believe marriage itself should be made more difficult. I do believe it shouldn't be anywhere near as easy as it is to, like you said, sign a piece of paper, head to Vegas, 10 minutes later you're married. I don't believe that should be. That's a mockery of what marriage is.
And I don't want to be insensitive to anyone who has been divorced. And there's one of us here.
I apologize. I agree. I don't want to. I don't want to make anybody sound like I'm talking down to anyone who's been divorced.
Right.
My family grew up amongst divorce. I don't want you thinking that I think any less of anybody. I want everybody to understand when I speak in a tone of respect for everyone's experiences and everything else like that.
But the point I'm going to make about that is that I think the value of marriage, whether or not you count it to be a religious thing, is the value of the vows, because you're making a vow to one another in front of, insert God if you want to, but whether or not God's there, you're making this vow in front of everybody.
You're making a public promise.
You're making a promise to each other, and it's in public, so you're accountable to it. And unfortunately, a high divorce rate, and the only logical thing I can say about it is that it kind of cheapens the vows, because if it's so easy to get out of and so easy to reverse, you can know that in the back of your mind and just make a flippant vow and say, this doesn't matter to me, I'm just going to make the vow so we can be married, but I know I can annul it at any time. So that will cheapen it for some people. I'm not saying it cheapens it for everyone, but that's a possibility. And then it brings up, well, if you're making this vow in front of everyone and they know you might be thinking that reflects upon you whether or not your vows are true.
Okay, I think this is a good place for a segue. And I'm Go ahead, Booger. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that, in my point of view, a lot of this really started off with the concept of the no-fault divorce that really hit the legal system. When that kicked in, that's when divorces became a lot easier, not only in fact, but also in mindset of a lot of people. And nobody had to justify necessarily why. They just said, hey, okay, if I want to get divorced, I can get divorced, regardless of whether the other one wants to, regardless of whether I have a quote-unquote good enough reason. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to pull this forward into... is the idea, is marriage still what did I say?
Relevant?
Relevant today, yeah. Is marriage still relevant, or something that's viable today? And the reason I'm going to say that, I'm going to say something that's a little controversial now, and I want you guys to go ahead and disagree with me, because this is honestly how I think marriage should be. And I got the idea from actually a science fiction book by Orson Scott Card called Memory of Earth, I think. And I think this is...
because he's religious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
very interesting.
He actually scripted
maybe it wasn't Orson Scott. I'm pretty sure it was.
No,
check the show notes.
Likely he's big in science fiction, but he does things like scripts, like the animated Bible and stuff like that. It's kind of
very interesting. Okay, well, whether it was or not, I know the book was Memory of Earth, and at any rate, I feel that marriage is not as important as the connection between the people. And I might be saying this from the point of view because, Cale had said that the first year is the most difficult, but I just realized, well, most people call it the honeymoon period. And maybe I'm still in the honeymoon period, and maybe because I never really had one with Sarah, I don't know. But for me, I'll get to this in a second. Let me talk about the marriage part. I think that marriage should be like a contract with an expiration date. I think it should be very easy, not super easy, but there should be some restrictions. But then when both of you go into this contract and it becomes more of a legal thing, the marriage contract goes for a certain amount of time. And then maybe a year, I think in the book they did a year, maybe 2 years, depending on situations, you are then allowed to renew that contract if both of you agree. Oops. If either one of you decides, I don't want to renew it, then it doesn't get renewed. And the marriage is over. So there's not actually something as known as divorce. There's just marriage contracts that end because maybe life situation has changed, or maybe you found out you're not with that person. So the whole idea isn't so much that divorce is a bad thing. It's more along the lines of, if it's not working, then it at least when the person doesn't want it to work, then it's probably not going to work. And then it's time to let it go and to move on. Now, of course, when you bring kids into the situation, there's got to be a whole bunch more happening around that. But I think that is more of a logical way of looking at how marriage should work. And I think it would be a better way for marriage to be, and I think it's a more reasonable way for it to be.
It does bring up a point that marriage isn't very accommodating, because some people grow nicely into a marriage and others grow out of a marriage
Yeah.
in a certain way. But again, part of the secular aspect of marriage is that this is where we're expecting a family to be. And once a family is established, is it right to tear the family apart on a whim just because someone says, well, I'm not into this anymore?
And that's what I kind of feel like, though, is that I don't think it's something we're going to get away from with people getting divorced and families getting broken apart. I think the idea is more along the lines of you don't show it as a family being broken apart. It becomes, I have a mother and I have a father, and maybe they're in a contract together and we're all together at this time, but in the future I might have someone else who's part of my family. My family might just be me and my mother at this time and me and my father at this time, and it doesn't have as much of a negative connotation. And I think more thought has to go into that, and obviously I'm not a father yet, so it's harder for me to look on it from that point of view. But I think that it could be worked out that way, where if a marriage doesn't work out and there are children involved, or even if there are not, dissolving. I'm trying to say the dissolve word of the marriage is not looked at as a negative thing. It's something that sometimes just happens. People aren't right for each other. Stop forcing it, because sometimes families that stay together with kids are making it worse on the kids with them being together because of the fighting and the disagreeing. And it would be better if the kid was with their single mom most of the time and the dad some other times, or however they were going to do it.
And they use the kid as a pawn in between
which happens
arguments.
very frequently.
And I think this will come up with almost any debate about what marriage is or where marriage ought to go. And not to open this can of worms, but this same kind of thing happens when you talk about same-sex marriage. A lot of it falls down to semantics. And I think that you're choosing to call marriage something else, a contract. You say we can not renew the contract after a certain point. And just because of the semantics of it, it's not called divorce anymore. But how is it actually different?
I think it's different because it's more, well, first of all, it is semantics. But it takes away a negative connotation, because a lot of times words have power, and semantics is part of that. And so it takes away the negative connotation of the divorce. But I think it's more important because it's not something that you have to work at to...
But I think it takes away the positive of marriage then. Because if it's like a 1-year contract, I think people would be more apt to just, all right, let's just get married, knowing that in a year. It's like you're leasing a car.
But that's what I'm saying. That's okay. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that people get married now and they're in a relationship.
I would think it would add complication that doesn't really need to be there.
Well, no, I think it would actually simplify everything.
I think it would complicate it more.
Oh,
I really
okay.
do. Because
well, then what happens if people forget to renew?
Is there no trade?
Well, I don't think people would forget.
Well, okay, and I'm going to tell and let me tell you why from my point of view, and this might be, like I said, part of the honeymoon period, but because I feel that I'm in a relationship with Kim that I will be in forever. And if this situation was true, we would always renew. It would be so important to us. I cannot picture us ever being at a state where we would say, well, we're not going to renew. It's not going to happen. It's just...
I mean, okay, then we're kind of in kind of a year-to-year contract anyways, because I feel the same way, like you're not going to renew, but you can get a divorce, so you could expire.
But that's what I'm talking about. If you're with the person that you can be with and compatible with, you will renew all the time. If you're with someone who is not right for you and you're forcing it, then someone can just say, hey, maybe we shouldn't renew this time. And it starts the conversation. As opposed to the fact where you have to say, let's get a divorce.
Well, let me jump on board with you in one respect. I think that social change is very difficult to enact.
Yeah.
And people often have a knee-jerk reaction because we're used to the concept of marriage as it is now. But we also have to admit to ourselves that with such a high divorce rate, marriage is broken. Let's face up to that.
Yeah.
And maybe the thing is, as much as this idea might sound strange to us, we don't know whether or not it's better, but our knee-jerk reaction is to jump on it and say, no, it's not good.
Yeah.
Right? But who knows? There might be a solution out there that we're all overlooking. And
I think people that live together, and I personally, when Linda and I got together and we'd lived together for a while, and we knew we were going to be together, And I just assumed we're going to be together. And I really wasn't thinking about, oh, we're going to get married and all of that. I was just, we're going to be together. And then I can't remember exactly the reason, some of the reasons, but part of the reason is that I needed to be on her insurance. And so that we were already engaged by then, but when I left my job and I needed insurance, then that sped up our marriage by about 6 months, I think.
Well, yeah.
So we got married earlier so that I could be on her insurance, even though we were going to get married anyway, but just it sped up our marriage.
Right, because things change, and I think that's an important thing, and I think that's one of the issues that comes along with marriage, is that marriage is kind of under the assumption that everything's going to be the same. We might be listening to this podcast in 20 years. And here I am saying, my relationship with Kim could never end. It's wonderful.
What does marriage look like after the singularity?
Exactly. I could be looking back. When I was with Sarah, I thought we were going to be together. We were going to have to be together forever. Yeah. But, we might be looking back in whatever years going, oh, my God, I can't believe I was saying that at that time. And the thing is, things change. And that's the only reason why I think something like this would work. But, Daryl, you're right. It is a knee-jerk reaction. And I don't think I think this is a logical way of looking at it. I don't think this is going to happen in my first lifetime, as I will have many lifetimes as I become digital.
Right.
He's a vampire.
I had a question. Maybe after the podcast, I have a question about singularity. So.
All right, that's awesome.
Okay, so Booger, you want to chime in, or Daryl?
If I may.
I'll let Gerald chime in first, but I definitely want to.
Oh, I was going to let you go first. Should we fight over it? Let's flip a coin.
No, I'll go first.
Okay, go first. All right.
Okay. First of all, I'll say that if you were to put an actual time limit on marriage, then at that point, as far as I'm concerned, it's more than just semantics. It's not marriage. It's just a social agreement at that point. Again, marriage is something that is more than just two people getting together. Again, this is just my perspective. I respect all of yours. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that in my perspective, marriage is it's a spiritual thing. Marriage is a ceremony where matrimony is the actual relationship there going forward. And by limiting it to a year, you're telling God, I only promise to love, honor, and blah 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 for a certain length of time. And if we want to do it again later on, that's not a family. That's just an agreement for you guys to share a bank account. And again, in my opinion, because I believe that when two people become one, you just can't separate it after a certain length of time, because the time expelled. When two people, when a man and a woman do make love, their souls join to one. So that doesn't just end because, it's been a year or it's been 2 years. That's not a marriage. Marriage goes forevermore. So that's why I don't believe, and frankly, I think that what you're describing as far as making sure the two are compatible, I totally agree with that. That's what I call the courtship period. But without the sex that seems to be going on right now whenever people try to figure out if they're compatible.
There's sex going on right now?
Dude.
Oh, no.
I knew it. That's what that sound was.
The thumping. All right. Yeah, I want to say, too, real quick with the contract, that there's one reason it will never, ever happen, because women will not go for it. That's it. They want their wedding, and it's all about them, and they win their guy, and then it's like control over their life and all that other stuff. So I'll lay it out there. Women won't do it.
Yeah, but Booger, thanks for bringing that up. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up, because I know that you and I have very different views on this. And don't worry, you can say I'm wrong, because from that point of view, I am, and that's fine, because I think we see things differently. But it's really, right. I'm glad you're here to bring that point of view forward. So that's actually really awesome.
So the point I was going to bring up was about how government. I think it's a separation of church and state.
Yeah, that is a problem. Because
I think there is a division between holy matrimony and then the legality of marriage. But they both go under a common name of marriage.
Yeah.
But
very, very true.
But just talking about like the common marriage, I see how sometimes government interferes with that, because as an example, kind of similar to one of the things Paul brought up, my grandpa, after my grandma passed away, he started dating this woman several years later, And that woman became my new grandma, and I always thought of her as my grandma, but she was just on a legal level my grandpa's girlfriend, all the way up until the time that they both passed on. And they never married because it would have affected pensions and Social Security payments and things like that. And they lived in a trailer together, and they couldn't afford to marry because it would have cut into their income.
Yeah.
And I just find it to be a travesty that, two people that love one another for legal reasons would have to suffer some sort of loss by getting married. But
No kidding. That's horrible.
But they were true to one another, and I knew they loved each other.
See, as far as I'm concerned, they are married.
Right.
Because I feel that marriage is, it's just what you said. There's
they
two
were
types.
Together long enough that they were
Common
technically
law.
common law.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
still,
we don't have common law in California, though.
Okay.
I think
Well, then
we
I
do.
guess.
Yeah.
we do.
don't?
agree.
Last I heard they
Yeah, we
did.
do,
Of course,
yeah.
I haven't lived there.
But no,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think
I don't
if
think
only we
there
had something we could look it up on.
Right, exactly.
But Daryl, as you were saying, there is definitely a difference between, because there's the concept of marriage in either a religious or just as I was saying, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, legally or not, I would say that your grandparents were married. That is what I would consider marriage, because it's about two people together like that. But then, Booger, you would say, because your concept of marriage is different, you may say they're not married, but it doesn't matter, because both Booger and my idea are ideas of marriage, which should have nothing to do with the legal part of marriage, except, there should be a separation
Like
there.
polygamous marriage.
Yeah.
Legally, they're only married to the first wife.
Right.
But they're married to all
everyone,
3 or 4 or 20 or whatever,
And that's an excellent
Tim.
point. And that there is a difference between what you said, holy matrimony, and
I'm right.
Kale's right. Dang it.
Well, let's look at it this way. Like, this is just going to be an argument for
Get to the chopper.
Yeah.
This is usually my go-to argument for liberty. Okay, if you want to foist your religious paradigm of marriage on everyone else and make that the law, how would you feel if someone foisted their version of marriage on you and that were the law?
I don't like foist at all.
I don't even know what it means.
But it's like
it sounds
what
nice.
if the whole thing is like
R, matey, R, hoist the
we're gonna force legally for it to be like polygamist marriages or something like that. Like say that's the only way you can legally get married.
Well-
I think the law should be separated from moral religious arguments, and that's entirely what separation of church and state is about.
Yeah.
Just
Why gay
because
marriage
something
isn't
is
going through.
morally acceptable
Well,
to
it's
me
like-
doesn't mean it has to be the law of the land and morally acceptable.
Which brings
to
us to
everyone.
gay marriage, and it's becoming a hot topic issue these days. And if you're feeling comfortable to put your opinion out there, go ahead. My opinion is that, as far as I'm concerned, guys want to marry guys. That's they want to get involved in this whole marriage thing. That's their loss. I mean,
I'm not sure who said it, but there was a comedian
I
who
was about
said,
to say that. So remember, I said I was going to say that.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, you probably have the comedian part, but I was just going to say, if gay people want to ruin their lives by getting married, that's to them. Wasn't that what you were going, right?
Well, it was close to that. I was going to say that this comedian said that if they should be able to marry if they want to be as miserable as the rest of us.
That's right. That's
let
right.
'em.
Miserable the rest of us. That's
I have
fine.
no problem with gays. I think lesbians are hot.
Not all of them. not all of them, no. But no, what I was saying is I'm
Movies
fine with
that I
gay
saw.
marriage. I don't want to see them having sex, but I don't want to see most people that I know having sex. So it's really fine if they want to go ahead and get married, because marriage is a love thing for me, and I know they're in love, so that's my
It ends
thing.
up being a bedroom thing, and it's like,
And a
just
moral
because,
Let's keep government out of the bedroom, please.
I
Unless
mean,
they're into that.
there are
Unless you
gay
want more
couples
government in your bedroom.
that would be much better parents and married couples than a lot out there that's having kids and ruining
Agreed.
lives and stuff. Yeah. And we can use the text.
I think that can eventually be confusing to the kids, but
But I think it's becoming more acceptable now.
Yeah,
and
it
I
is,
think
it
it's the future. It's going to be. I think people are going to look back on it kind of like the racial, the idea of marrying someone who's a different race or a different color than you.
Well, one way that I look at it is if you have a problem with. I think there are two ways that you can have a real problem with this and think that it's going to have a huge social impact. The first is if you don't think that people are born gay or they have gay tendencies, right? I think that's just kind of an innate thing. It's much more nature, a lot less nurture, in my book. And the thing is, I think that if people see others being openly gay with one another, it's not going to make someone who has the nature of being heterosexual turn homosexual. And I think that's like the kind of 1950s era fear of the whole thing. It's like, oh my gosh, if people are gay in public, it's going to turn all these straight people gay. But then the second aspect of it is, what's wrong with that? You know, if we're going to be completely accepting of people being the way that they are and they want to be openly gay, why are we worried about people being gay? And I think
why would they think that that's going to be so much more appealing? Well, I don't understand that. Why did they think it was going to be so appealing that if they saw it, they'd want to do it? That doesn't even make sense to me. It's so appealing that if we try it. Yeah.
Did you see those penises touch? I want to try it.
That's right.
Sorry, I think I have to insist to finish the thought, though.
Yeah, he was on a good thought.
No, I mean, it's going to come off the wrong way if I don't finish it.
Okay, go
because
ahead.
that's what she said next week.
This is the thing that I would want to frame it as being a parent, okay? If you have a child and that child decides, or not even decides, that's the wrong word to say, but they come out at one time and say, Dad, I'm gay, or Dad, I'm lesbian, why would you feel bad about that? Would you love them any less? And if you feel like you would love them any less, then I think you have a problem.
Yeah.
It's not...
You have an issue with society.
You have an issue with dealing with that subject. Now, the thing is, you might feel bad that they're going to lead a harder life than a heterosexual would. But that's more of a societal problem. That's not your problem or their problem. That's the problem with society, is saying gay people aren't as good or they don't have the same rights as everyone else. Therefore, we can ridicule them and treat them as second-class citizens.
You know what?
And that's where the real problem is. It's with society.
And you know what? I think this topic is... I just realized it now. I was just going to put it in as a side thing, but you brought it up quite brilliantly, that this topic, taking marriage and gay marriage and bringing it together, gay marriage has a whole different basis to it, which is pretty much the idea you have behind someone who's gay. I think the first thing you said connects more to this than the other stuff, because no, actually it all connects, and that's what's difficult. I think we have to do another podcast just on this, actually.
Yeah, it's a big subject, so I wasn't sure we were going to open it up on this one.
I think it's important to mention, but I don't think we can get too much into it because you're bringing a lot of good points. Booger, do you want to mention anything on this at all, or wait until, or not say anything? Or?
I filibustered.
Well, I'm sitting here because you thought if I was long-winded earlier in this podcast, I have a lot to expound on that. So if we do decide to do another podcast specifically on that, I would like to reserve. Yeah. But if you don't think we will, I'll go ahead and speak.
No, I think we will. So, and we've been going for a while. So let's go ahead. Just if you want to, just give your opinion on gay marriage, since that's kind of where we are. And then we'll go from there.
I got long-winded about that. So
take as much as you need, but we will probably do a podcast. I'll probably do this.
We're going to edit you out anyway. So.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay.
That's the snoring dog. Which, by the way, you've been muting quite well. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Also, okay, I'm going to go. There should be no surprise on my opinion on gay marriage. However, there are a lot of the arguments I've been hearing about pro-gay marriage do not quite calculate in my head. A lot of people are claiming that homosexuals do not have the legal right to get married, so on and so forth, like heterosexuals do, and it's discrimination against them. I beg to differ. Homosexuals have just the same legal right as every one of us in this podcast to get married in all 50 states in the Union. We have a legal right to get married to one individual person who is an adult. It is consenting of the opposite sex. None of us, not a single one of us, are allowed to marry our dog. We're not allowed to marry a child. We're not allowed to marry a chair. We all do. Not a single one of us are. What is it?
You said the words right there, though. Consenting adult.
Yeah.
So
that's what it has to be.
Right.
Consenting adult.
Yeah. So it's not an animal
or a chair.
Not a chair.
No, consenting adult of the opposite sex. That's right. Well, none of us are discriminated against when it comes to that. That is what I remember, like I said before, what I believe marriage is. It is a beginning of a family for perpetuating, having children, and so on and so forth. Now, I understand in today's society that there is such a thing as an adoption or artificial insemination. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is natural. I'm talking about what nature has provided.
Well, that's obviously we can get way into it.
So I think we definitely need to do this.
Exactly.
Because I think we all got some opinions on that.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
Mr. T say, stop your jibber jabber, because I'm not married yet, and I'm Lawrence Tebbered.
I do think we have to
never
kind of
found
keep
out whether he was married.
the argument framed, though, that no one here is proposing anything other than with a consensual adult. We're just saying the gender of that consensual adult is the only thing in question. So if we keep the argument...
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Say that again.
Okay, I was just saying we should frame the argument as being that we're all talking about consenting adults here. We're just at dispute over if it could be opposite or same gender. So let's keep it under those contexts so we don't start talking about, breeding
and that,
with our animals and stuff like that.
And we can definitely have that podcast in the future.
Well, I'm hoping for a bestiality podcast. Actually, that's my next choice.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll hold off until after the
hedgehogs.
Yeah.
You and Muppet.
Oh, please!
Sorry.
No, she was old.
That was wrong. I'm
I
sorry.
want that donkey that the army guy's sitting on.
Yeah. Okay. So my last question to everyone, because
Donkey
we've been going on for a long time, and I might actually say, Darren, we might want to cut the beginning of this because. Oh wait, we don't cut. Because we started off slow and then it got really good.
We did kind of start off slow.
That was kind of my fault.
You want to you start off slow and you get a nice rhythm and stuff.
Right?
And you just keep
Yeah,
it going.
it's always important.
And then you just slam it at the end.
If you start too fast, there's just not enough lube.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so my last question for all of you, which I've kind of already covered, is: do you think marriage is a positive institution? Do you think it's outdated? And if you do you think it can be replaced or should be replaced?
I think you already told us your opinion on that.
I've got my opinion.
What was the question again? I was reading this.
Do you think marriage is positive, or do you think it's outdated? And if you think it's outdated, can it be replaced or should it be replaced?
I think it's positive. I think that maybe we'll have new forms of marriage in the future to accommodate our new societies. I mean, we're having catastrophic changes right now in our society because of technology, and when the singularity occurs, that'll even create even more problems of marriage, and they'll be needing changes. Maybe then there'll have to be an exploration date on marriage. But overall I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a good thing, and actually until I got married I thought it wasn't necessary or it wasn't really a good thing to do. You just, if you love somebody, you be with them, and you live with them, you have kids with them, whatever.
Kale, did you brain merge with someone behind my back?
Yes, I
and
did.
Was it a guy?
It was Paul first, but it didn't work out. But once I got married, I realized by being married that it was a really good thing and that it was something that I wanted.
I think that marriage is very positive. And it is changing as society changes, just like it has in the past. So it'll be interesting what it'll be 10, 20 years from now, because it is very different, I believe, than what it was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And I find marriage to be overall pretty positive. I think I would like to see our government work a little more to tease out the separation between church and state, and that's not limited to only marriage. And but as far as it being a vow to your betrothed, I think it serves a very important role in society as being something to be taken seriously and not entered upon lightly.
Yep, that sounds good. What about you, Booger?
Why is it that every time you introduce me into the conversation, you guys are always laughing?
Yes, you see the
No, it's because they're buggering Mr. T with a hand.
When he was saying seriously, I was sticking my big red finger into Mr. T's butthole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
well, not
making
exactly
people
like
laugh.
that.
But go ahead.
Go ahead, Booger.
Mr. T says, "What?
Wow,
what you and I do with my red hand doesn't matter."
what a frame of context for my. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I think
it's more that we do it to Daryl, and then you're next. And sorry,
I couldn't hear a thing you said. What?
No, go ahead.
Go.
Hey, he just says he and Paul tried to gang up on me, or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Marriage positive. Yes, go.
I think that marriage is definitely positive. I don't think it's outdated at all. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think not marriage itself is perfectly fine. Unfortunately, it's the way that people have decided to treat it that has become erroneous, and that's why I think that unfortunately a lot of people in society just may have an incorrect opinion and viewpoint on marriage, and so that's why I think marriage itself is not outdated. Marriage, I think, is required for it's positive and it's necessary for us to be able to continue on with just living with life as a whole. And as a matter of fact, I actually found it quite interesting that as you guys were talking, it reminded me when I was younger, good 15 years ago, I used to ask friends of mine they were in their lower 20s, they were thinking about getting married, and I'd ask them, okay, you guys are getting married, but you're getting married just in a civil court. Why? What's the point and purpose of you guys getting married? And every single one of them would always tell me, well, it's just what you do. I'm sorry, but like I said before, to me, marriage is something much more than just a contract. So, I mean, I can't help but wonder, like Cale, you guys said that you were going to get married anyway, but you sped yours up by 6 months for insurance purposes. If there was, I mean, I believe me, I'm not trying to downplay your reasons or anything like that. I genuinely want to know, for all of you, if you got married for reasons other than religious reasons, why bother? Why go through the whole process? What was the motivation behind it?
Well, Kale's an atheist, so maybe he can speak onto that.
I love it when you're angry.
Yeah.
Well, just to make a short answer is that to me, marriage is a joining of two people, but it doesn't have to be religious, and it doesn't have to be spiritual in the sense of religious spiritual. But when you're married to somebody, and especially when you're around them, the bonding that goes on, and that is something that is better than just living together. And
so it was for the emotional bond between the two of you. Then is that do I understand
it created
correctly?
a better bond by becoming married. Yes,
It built a better bond.
it
would
did.
sound better.
Thank you. It built a better bond.
Okay.
More literal.
Okay.
It did. All right.
Is that why you got married? Did you do it with those hopes, or was that what it ended up turning out being?
I can't remember exactly at that time, but it became. I'm not sure if I saw that at the beginning, but it became
I think your
that.
exact words was Linda was the shit. Awesome. Right?
Linda, she the shit. Yeah, man.
That must have been what I said.
She's like, I was on the toilet.
Whoa,
Big
wait,
old
what?
shit.
All right.
Whoa.
I'm going
We're gone way off the rails.
All right, so
All
let's move on. You know what? We had so much fun last week. Remember last week when we did the random ramblings?
Yes.
That was so much
That was a
fun.
lot of fun.
We're gonna do it again next week. We won't do from a hat. Why don't each of us come up with our own title, and we'll call it that next week when we do it. Booger,
From a cup.
well, maybe out of a cup.
Yeah,
we'll have them out of a
instead of your
cup
hat. So I don't
instead of a hat. We don't want to mess your
And
hat
not
up.
my pants.
Yeah, and not your pants.
No.
Booger, you're not invited to that one because you won't be there. And
Because he wasn't there.
no, we won't be there when we do it next week
Yes.
because we're doing these in order.
I feel like we've been time traveling or something. This is
I
so
know.
much to talk about.
And then the week after that will be a surprise, and this is true. We don't even know what we're gonna do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll see.
Oh no, we do know.
We do
No, we
know.
don't.
Yeah, but-
He's gonna say it.
Oh, next week he's gonna say what
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna do
say,
next
yes.
week.
Yeah.
We
So
do
we know, but we don't know.
He knows.
But we're not going to say.
And if you understood any of that, please map it out for us, and we can put it on the website. So anyone who didn't get it can
Please
understand
make an
it.
official Incoherent Ramblings timeline for us. So we know what's canon.
I'm just going to have to wait for this podcast to come out, because most of what you've just been saying, Joey, is coming out as garbage on my end.
Oh, no, it's on this end, too, actually.
It was garbage to begin with.
Most of what I say is garbage, so
That's what makes it so good.
I'm well aware of that. Okay, so moving on.
Well oiled, too.
Thank you. So what does Mr. T say to say goodbye?
Mr. T said, marriage seems to be very positive, but all this jibber jabber talk about other top marriage stuff make Mr. T not cool. So Mr. T gonna go drink his milk, And then Mr. T's gonna go watch Rocky 3. And then
milk.
Mr. T's gonna eat his Mr. T cereal because that's the most delicious cereal ever created by man. And Mr. T just has to say, I pity the fool who don't listen to this podcast. And if you're not listening to this podcast, then you're not listening to me.
All right, I can tell by the I can tell by the swampiness in my pants right now that it is time to end the podcast. So, you can find
the shorts worked out really.
Really?
You can find me at okay, Paul. What shorts are those?
Oh, these are
Oh, they're wicking.
these are wicking
Moisture wicking.
moisture wicking
For
sports
swamp.
shorts.
I have some of those. I'll have to wear some next time so I don't get
my
swamp
balls
ass.
aren't as
Maybe I should wear
swampy.
swimming trunks. You ever try that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Joey Shamel. If you want to talk to me about swamp ass, you can go ahead and email me at or any of us at show@IamRambling.com.
And let's keep those emails not coming in. Oh, wait, coming in or something.
Come on, man. Email us about swamp ass. Maybe we should do this at the beginning of the show, because
Maybe.
by now everybody's turned off.
True, everyone's
We
like-
used to say our emails at the beginning.
Yeah.
Duh!
Well, if you
It's
made it this
brilliant.
far, I have to say you have a lot of patience.
Okay,
This
first-
it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
We had a lot of great points, but it might have dragged a little bit if you're not into the topic.
Okay, first,
Just saying.
I
First
think it have
listener-
to do with the lack of potato.
that too. First listener who sends us an email to show@IamRambling.com with the heading swamp ass will win a prize.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what yet, but it will be a
It
prize.
will be a prize.
It will be at least.
Mail him a donut.
No, we'll do something good, like $5. We'll go to the 99-cent store.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can also put any of our names: Joey, Paul, Kale.
Did you just say you're going to go to the 99-cent store and mail him $5?
Yeah, that's what I said, Booger. That's what I do.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Something.
You got it. So anyway, you can put our names, Daryl, Booger, whatever, in front of the at IamRambling.com and also
Whatever
get,
at I Am Rambling doesn't.
we should.
No,
We're
you
We're gonna end
want it?
now. No, let's just. I'm Joey Shamel. You can get me do me it.
Where can we do you at?
Wow. You can find me at www.IamRambling.com.
That's Paul Hottinger. You can find me at heyitspaul.com.
This is Cale Anderson. You can find me at romsrants at blogspot.com.
It's Daryl, and you can find me at george.com. GIORS.
O-R.
Oh,
And this is-
yeah.
Booger, where you at?
This is Booger. You can find me buried underneath 2 housefuls full of junk.com.
Nice.
Of the.
So, thanks for joining us in this marriage. It's been long. It's been hard.
It's been hard.
I feel like we
It's been good.
It's time for the
I was waiting for the jokes to come.
Divorce isn't easy. What about ending this podcast?
Yeah, let's divorce that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, hey, I'll go ahead
Especially
and
gone an
end
hour and
with
40
the little
minutes.
joke I heard. Not that I agree with it, but it's still funny.
Go.
Do you know why divorce is so expensive?
Why is divorce so expensive, Booger?
Because it's worth it.
That was almost funny. Okay, so thanks everybody. We'll see you next week. Woo! Bye. Well done, Frank.
Thanks for listening. You can now stop screaming at the open air. Listeners should put their minds back in their upright positions and resume traditional thinking. Find us on IamRambling.com for access to all of our weekly ramblings, show notes, general discussions, and any projects from Incoherent Ramblings. Like us on Facebook and rate us on iTunes. So long, and thanks for all the fish.